Test. Okay.
Test.
Test.
1, 2. There. That's picking up.
Okay. Okay. So it has to be that. I mean, your sound. I don't think it's on. I think it's on.
If you are watching right now, we are still manually sharing our links.
And giving people time to join because this is a live stream. If you are watching the recording of this live stream in some future period, you may want to skip forward 5 minutes. We do tend to prattle on while we're getting things started, but you know how it is with live streams. It just takes a while.
Mm, Manually sharing the link. Shared it on Twitter.
Oh, Stoops. That's you. It's not YouTube. I need the Facebook link.
YouTube feed is running.
And originally, our feed was still at the standard definition and not the high def. So I hope it's better now. You have a monitor on? Not yet.
YouTube, yeah.
Okay, it looks okay. It looks not standard definition-y. I think.
Mhm.
I think. You know, yesterday, Ethan, after all of our talk, he's like, okay, now I really have to rewatch Pushing Days. Like, it's our fault. So that was cool. And I think, commented after, like, he's hoping for a non-spoilery discussion. Sorry, a spoilery discussion of the show.
Maybe we can do that. We can have special episodes where it's full spoilery discussion,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we just talk about the episodes or we talk about the movie. Because we kind of did that with WandaVision.
Mm-hmm,
We
mm-hmm.
had our first
Hey, Jed.
full spoilery discussion. Hey, Jed!
Yeah.
Still don't see the feed.
I tagged you in the post. I think you have to hard refresh your tab.
Yeah.
You know you've been working with dev projects too often that by default I control F5. It's like clear cache because I need to see you. I need to see you. Okay, and I'm ready for credits later. So we're just warming up and waiting for people to join. Um,
Hmm. Still don't see it.
Let me just go to my page.
Yeah. It just also worries me when it parang doesn't reshare the tag of itself.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's a Facebook thing. While you're waiting, we'd appreciate if you like this video, share it with other people who may be interested, um, or might have something to say. Because today we're talking about this fabulous pandemic period that we are all still living through.
Alright. I guess we can officially start.
Sure. So we'll be right back. We'll just roll credits.
Oh yeah! Really great!
Hello, everyone. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a Friday night, so we're talking about something a little bit more personal. And we are wearing our.
Pride Studios PH shirts, and this particular design celebrates Let Baltasar, a very fabulous, quirky drag
Mhm.
queen. She has a whole line of shirts just dedicated to her, which is kind of bonkers. So if you want to find a creative way to support
The
your favorite
queens.
queens,
Hmm.
then buy their shirts. And the part of the proceeds goes to the queens. There's a whole other line that is for God Save the Queen, which is a bunch of different shirts dedicated to different drag artists. No, this is not a promoted post.
Yes, this is just us supporting it because, as this episode is all about, living in the time of pandemic, we have to help each other out.
Yeah, so okay, when we were trying to map this out, it was because what happens is on the weekends, since we no longer do episodes on weekends, to kind of give ourselves some headspace.
Mhm.
We're like, so what's happening this week? Which feels too close to like my life at work because it's
Mhm.
always like, what holidays coming up? What can we create content about? And then the only thing of note that we knew was happening this week is that today is supposed to be, well, technically it still is, the last day of this current declaration of ECQ, or enhanced community quarantine, in Metro Manila and a
Mhm.
few other places in the Philippines. And I mean, we weren't expecting things to get magically better after today, but we knew that this is what we had to look forward to
Mhm.
today. So then this is how this came up. So, Toby, would you like to try to define this discussion? Like, how are we going to tackle this?
In many ways, this episode is all about survival. It's all about dealing with the fact that we are in a situation that hasn't gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, a majority of the things are beyond our control. So, when reduced down to what you can control or what you can at least focus on, I think this is a chance in this episode to share these ideas, to share what has worked for us,
Yep.
because everyone deals with the pandemic in their own way.
Yeah, there's been a lot of references to the quote unquote new normal. We used to hear that phrase a lot more last year. I think this year we're just tired. But I think after being in quarantine for more than a year, maybe you really need to take take a moment and think about sort of what works and what doesn't. So we're gonna try to focus on the positive, as is the Baduy Pride way, not to be
Hmm.
Pollyannas about it, but just to be more constructive and like just trying a way to keep moving forward.
And if any of our tips don't work for you or sound like that, maybe they need to be tweaked in some way, feel free to let us know and message us or add them in the comments. Because unlike others, we welcome criticism.
Yeah, so I guess if this were a work setting, you could say that this is the best practices sharing, and we're gonna, just share what works, and then we hash out ultimately maybe what are best practices for all of us in this Baduy Pride little
Mhm.
session. So I hope we'll have a fruitful discussion with all of you. Thanks for joining tonight.
So, as a prompt, Mitch shares, I'm confused regarding the differences of MECQ versus ECQ.
I think a lot of people are, and um,
I feel like the people in charge are confused themselves.
yes, because the goalposts keep changing. So
Mm,
for me, what is most important to me, and I think this becomes my first tip, is that regardless of the national definition, in the
yes.
same way that when a law is released, how it's implemented may differ, then I still wait for what my local government unit is going to say.
Mhm.
And depending on your local government, the way they communicate these updates may vary. Thankfully, a lot of them have learned to get on social media.
Mhm.
The quality of the updates may differ. Sometimes it's just text. Sometimes it's a templated,
Mhm.
image post.
And an
So
infographic.
yeah, and infographics and stuff.
Mhm.
I appreciate the city of Taguig has gotten very diligent in posting stuff. It's just I think the only challenge with Taguig is that they have so many pages.
Mhm.
There's I Love Taguig, which is the main page. There's Safe City Taguig, which is largely dedicated to talking about the quarantine.
Yes.
And I know there's one for the vaccination, which is like Trace Tagig, which is dedicated to answering vaccination process related stuff.
Mhm.
So even that can be a little confusing, but at least find one that's comfy for you. Me, I just follow I love the gig. Um, and then I stick to those updates. And that could help. So
Mhm.
look, so that's my first tip for surviving the ever changing states of the pandemic is to make sure you know where your local government posts
Mhm.
updates and follow those. So normally the local government, but it's more important that you are aligned with your local government's understanding of the quarantine versus the national government because they're the ones who will have the barangay tanod in the streets
Implementing it.
implementing it.
Yes.
So stick to that.
Now, don't limit yourself to just the local government of your residence,
Mm.
especially if you're someone who still has to step out despite the pandemic and
Mm-hmm.
work somewhere else. If you live in Parañaque and you know how Parañaque is handling things, but you work in Makati, then you might have to also keep an eye out on how things are being implemented there because different local areas might handle things differently.
Yeah, which is a bit of a pain. Largely, we're following the same guidelines across a quarantine area, and for
Mhm.
Metro Manila or the National Capital Region, that's all one, political group, political boundary. But there will be slight tweaks to implementation. Like some cities have liquor bans and some don't. Some are very strict on how they're implementing curfew. Some not as much,
Mhm.
and depends. So stick, err on the side of caution, but stick to your local government stuff.
Mhm.
And then I think my only other tip also is that regardless of quarantine level, I think that things will remain fundamentally the same in terms of how you're protecting yourself. So,
Things should
it
remain.
should remain the same. So, minimum health and safety standards for this quarantine. As much as we hate face shields for now, we're just following them. But more importantly, I think you have to pay a lot of attention to good mask wear if you need to step out,
Mhm.
and then largely minimize
Disinfect.
stepping out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disinfection should still be done and practiced in any way you can. Whether it's the moment you get home, you make sure you undress and then shower and then make sure your clothes are, you don't
Straight to the
reuse,
hamper. Yeah.
you don't reuse or use further things you wore while outside for the rest of the day, but make sure that they're part of what's going to be washed. I was personally very annoyed when I saw some people posting that, oh, it's dangerous now to have kids out. It always was dangerous to have
Yeah.
kids out. Stop thinking that just the fact that we've hit 17,000 now is only the time it's now dangerous to have kids out. It has been dangerous for over a year now, and the fact you're only now thinking it is very triggering.
A moment of calm. Wow. I knew this would be a potentially heated discussion, but you gotta chill, Toby. You gotta stay calm, stay cool.
And that is the next area of advice. You will have to find ways to deal with the stress that comes with the things that are beyond your control. Whether it's people who still act like idiots, whether it's people in charge who don't seem to be communicating with each other, or whether it might even be microaggressions that you just happen to be hit by, even if you weren't the target. You might have people who've been struggling with hospital bills or wondering about where they'll find their next paycheck. And because of their worries, they end up doing something that annoys you. Maybe they cut you off in traffic, or maybe in the line, they end up, shoving against you. You'll just have to try to find those areas where you're more patient. Separate the emotional, instinctive response to the physical reaction that you will then do. It's valid to feel annoyed. It's valid to feel angry. It's valid to feel irritated. But how you react to those emotions is something you still have responsibility and control over, and it must be something you must consider.
And everyone is under a lot of stress. I think if you want common ground more than any other period in history, we are all going through the same experience, and everybody's stressed. So some allowances need to be made in
Mm-hmm.
that regard. A bit more patience if you can bank it,
Mm-mm.
or yeah. I always just remind myself that people are just. People are just trying to deal with it in their own way, and we roll with it.
So Jed shares people who declare they need a break from the pandemic and have already posted being in Boracay twice. Yes. Mitch shares breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah, I think and depending on, your mileage may vary, but a lot of people have tried to adopt different mindfulness
Mm,
practices throughout the pandemic to help cope with things. This can range from anything to getting into meditation, following apps that help you with meditation and breathing, or if you want, there's the Netflix documentary series Headspace that also helps you with
hmm
meditation. Um, there are things like just nice white noise, ambient music. Um, Funnily, the other day, a friend of ours posted on social media that he's super feeling alone, and then he's resorted to playing podcasts that have, you know, that are mostly conversations between the speakers.
hmm
That are, he leaves that playing while
So
working.
it feels like there's someone there.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I was like, well, that's one. Then I was telling him about, there's like a gazillion like office ambient soundtracks on
hmm
YouTube that can also help.
hmm
Um, and then like at work, not everybody wants to do it, but we've always suggested like one option is like you can just leave a video conference call on, even if your
hmm
video is off, but just leave your mics unmuted and sort of the sound of you working in a shared space. And then every now and then you can like ask questions or mention something. I mean, like
hmm
it's, depending on level of comfort and work circle of friends, but it's
Yes.
like different ways. Especially if you're in a situation where you're living alone or uh, you're doing shift work at home, so you still feel alone because you're working at weird hours when your
hmm
family is not awake and stuff. So yeah, it could be something to explore and to help you cope with things.
Other ways include things that we also recommended in other episodes, such as why not dive back into a show or a series that you already enjoyed before? Watching something that you actually still are familiar with or you're more comfortable with is helpful because it doesn't have any unexpected surprises. You know the moments you'll enjoy are coming up. It helps you feel like there's a bit more order in the world again.
Yep. For like this is why like we're rewatching Pushing Daisies this week, and hence the yesterday's discussion on Pushing Daisies.
Mhm.
Or things like I ended up it's like, oh, let's finally get Toby to finish watching like a particular Star Trek because I wanted to rewatch Star Trek. So we
Mhm.
all have like our comfort shows, so to
Yes.
speak, that make us feel better. Oh my gosh! In this pandemic, we rewatched Battlestar Galactica.
hmm
So things like that. Mitch shares Korean variety show Running Man is my go-to sense of
Yeah,
laughter.
we have to get into that. The main reason we haven't is it's hard to watch something that needs subtitles while working.
Yeah.
But we have to get back into that.
Unless we start learning Korean.
Yeah, and I even want to try to dig up Genius. I know we
Oh yeah,
only
we never
saw
quite finished
the
it.
first two seasons, but I know there's like four.
Hello,
Um,
Mina.
and then what else? Spoil yourself without risking your safety. Maybe you've always been on a diet. Mm, Then it wouldn't hurt to this time have a little bit more snacks or get a small cake. But spoil yourself because in the normal days, we reserve those moments for celebrations.
Mm,
Oh, I won't eat muna. I'll wait for my birthday. Or oh, I won't break my diet, but I know Christmas is coming up, and that's when I'll eat.
okay.
We are not in a place where those type of events are safe. And if you are one of those still celebrating in large groups, shame on you. But
Okay.
spoil yourself and stay safe.
Um, in that connection, the way I also think about
Break
things,
keto. You have a few times.
very rarely, but
Yeah, but
yes.
like when we had Mango Bravo for my birthday, you had some.
Yeah, and then I feel like I never recovered. It's like my weight moved 1 kilogram up on average
Mm-hmm.
ever since then. But I've also been working out, so it's hard to say.
That's all.
Um, on that note, there's also like think about the sort of equation of things that you have given up
Mm-hmm.
versus the ways you can treat yourself. So you're no longer paying for commute, maybe you're no longer paying for movie tickets outside,
Yes.
you're no longer paying for food outside more often than not. Then then think about, think about where that money might go. Then
Mm.
so things like we definitely did not have the air conditioning
Sorry, I just saw
running.
Mina's message. Afterwards, keep
Yeah,
going.
so we didn't have the air conditioning running as much as we do now.
Yes. But
And
at the same time, I'm not spending for gas as much as we used to.
yes, and we're not watching theater
Mm.
anymore and things like that.
Likewise, we're much more generous now trying to help the queens we can. But that's because it's also partly the same amount of money we would have spent drinking out that night
Yeah,
when we would go to watch them.
before, like, I mean, like, just like before, like, you would tip maybe a minimum $100 per queen when you could, and then now it's like, okay, so we can move stuff around.
Mhm.
And it's also because we're just very concerned about, like,
Helping them,
helping
helping
them out
support.
because they
Yeah.
have no other main source of income. I
Which is why you
see.
can buy the shirts to support them.
Yes, not a sponsored post. I see Mina. Okay, fine, buying books that may be keto. I still don't know what books you're buying.
No, no, she says I buy books, at least it's keto. Because you keep spending on stuff that isn't
No,
keto.
but see, even her books, I don't know.
They're keto because she's not eating carbs when she buys the book. Mitch shares, um, as mentioned in Parks and Recreation, treat yourself.
Actually, it is treat yourself, and it's like a yourself, treat yourself. Okay, but yeah, so just figure out without like breaking the bank. I
Mhm.
mean, at the same time, I guess my only like disclaimer around that is just be a little prudent also because
Yes.
sources of income are a little shakier than they used to be. I mean, if you're still gainfully employed, that's great, but then kind of keep aware of like the state of your company because these are hard times for everyone.
And even if you are gainfully employed and the company seems to be doing okay, the pandemic is not over.
Hmm.
Things can still shift in the next few months unexpectedly. For all we know, a month from now, the lockdowns get worse and suddenly operations are forced to cease in certain ways. Or for all we know, given how tense certain things are on the political side in different parts of the world, that might have a rolling effect that complicates even the lockdowns. So, still practice prudence, make sure you're prepared for any concerns. In the past, it used to be make sure you have a nest egg. Now it's not even just the nest egg you have to make sure you're ready for. You might have to be ready to have means to communicate with family in case visits are completely shut down. You might have to consider making sure you have um, um, I guess you could say, a suitable supply of canned goods for those
Hmm.
emergency times when shopping might not be permitted.
I mean, you don't need to go full on like
Prepper.
prep. Yeah, I was gonna say doomsday prepping. Yeah, that
I
level.
used to think doomsday preppers are people who grew peppers. It really confused me. So for a while, I was like, why are they growing peppers? How will that help them in the doomsday? Oh, because they can be eaten and then they can be weaponized. And then I realized I was just messing up the letter R.
Sometimes I wish I were a Muppet. Then I think I would be able to better capture the expression I want to convey of my confusion.
But I really
This is
was.
this is best confirmed by the Kermit, like that when
So there was
when the puppet goes
so
like
there was
that.
that one episode we watched of a docu of Doomsday Preppers, and near the end of the episode, I was like thinking, I still don't see the peppers
Mm.
because they had that whole garden and stuff, right? In the lawn, they were showing that they grow now their own vegetables. They're super self sufficient, and their poop and stuff goes into fertilizer and blah 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 blah. And I was like watching, and I was like thinking, so where are the peppers?
Yun tuloy, Mayna brings up your for Tovi.
Yes, HM was always for me. So I always wondered why I'm selling my ganyan ganyan, and everyone I'm like, well, a lot of these people thinking if they'll buy it. Well, it turns out it's how much. Yes.
Toby can be very tito. Our age gap is not that big, but then sometimes it feels like a generation. Okay. All right. So treat yourself that responsibility. I like something that Mitch posted earlier, which
Matandang
was
ilalim ng paa. an old soul.
That Mitch's goal is to laugh genuinely at least once a day. I think she's mentioned
Mm.
this more than
Yes,
once
yes, yes. She
in
mentioned that.
in our conversations or on our on this on Baduy Pride, and
Mm-hmm.
it's I think it's still a valuable tip
Mm-hmm.
because especially as dreary as the news is, I mean it can get super heavy.
I will share that Mitch's way of greeting us on birthdays
Oh,
has been
it's the best.
super. It super makes up for the fact you can't have people around on your birthday.
Mm-mm.
What Mitch does is she always records a voice message. It's a song or a message with a song, but then it's such a delight to receive because it's crappy that we're having our next birthday still in lockdown. So it was such a nice touch. It really helped bring joy.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And and I'm sure there are a lot of creative ways to
Mm-hmm.
like make your friends feel special, whether it is sending them gifts, which means you actually have to know their physical addresses,
Mm-hmm.
um, or I don't know. I mean, like there's a there's always an opportunity to pay it forward and to help out. Um, and then I think especially now, and I know we're all like not in a similar situation,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not really a tip, but then I think for your conscience, this is definitely one of those periods where some form of act of charity is super important, um, and there is no shortage of people in your life that probably need help. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have a number of uh, friends, acquaintances, colleagues. So the staff of places that we would support and patronize, people in other affected industries. And I mean, we can't always give, and we can't necessarily give a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I think admittedly, I do feel better that we try and that we
Yes.
do something.
And if you find yourself not in the financial situation to help in that manner, just checking in on each other is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It Earlier today, I received a message from a friend who we have not heard of in years, but
Mm-mm.
was like, just making sure you and Rocky are okay. And I was like,
That's
oh,
nice.
thank you. It was totally unexpected. It Admittedly, it felt out of place only because it was literally out of the blue.
Mm-mm.
But then I realized it did feel good to have that realization that despite everything that's happening, someone out there thought of us, and that is a gift you can give to everyone, well, anyone else, without really costing more than just a little bit of time.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to, you don't have to expect that it's going to lead into a full on
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Even just checking and saying hi can go a long way.
Mm-hmm. And I could imagine the anxiety for some would be, what if I check in and then the person pala needs help and I can't help? The fact that you reached out to check in, even if you can't solve their problem, is enough. um, it's it's easy to think the moment you're in touch with someone, you're responsible for helping them. But the fact is, helping someone is a choice to do, and it's a choice that is still done responsibly. You cannot help. You cannot help if you cannot take care of yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So don't
Or
feel.
if you're in a plane, you have to put the mask on yourself before you help others.
And of course, Rocky's example is the plane is crashing. So
Hey, I love flight safety, okay? It's like you gotta love it. I know it's a weird example, but it's like, right? It's like that fundamental tip. You put your mask on before you put that on a child, right?
mm,
So yeah, help yourself.
yes. Okay, what
Oh,
else?
Jed mentions they still have some of the chicken corn soup mixes.
I still have the extra corn soup mix in case you need it. And Jed, we still have more containers for you. So if you need more containers
For your kitty cat.
for the cats, we can just send it to you. You don't have to pick it up. Just let
Man, that would be a weird grab send though. It's like other.
I'll have to wrap it or something so they don't see what it is.
Just containers.
I'll probably wrap it, but I'll like shape it so it looks like it's a person. So the guy feels like Death Stranding.
I think that's worse. All right. So, what else? Things to highlight.
Do the gestures.
Yeah. Hey, I was doing them earlier. We're not talking about flight safety anymore. Okay. Um, on that note, I mean, like, it's super important to try to take the time to reach out to your friends,
Yeah.
and it's hard. I'll be the first to admit that it's hard to do these things.
Hmm.
Like my family randomly has online get-togethers with a particular branch of the family, and it's like what's this? Um, uh, they increased in frequency because they had a paid Zoom subscription and
Hmm.
then it was running out. So they were like, let's meet every weekend. And then it hasn't happened since. And that's okay. I mean, like we'll get around to figuring it out.
Hmm.
Um we try to meet like our gaming friends, many of whom are here. We try to meet on a regular basis, but we can't seem to set a fixed schedule just yet. So like we kind of just run with it and what
But
time
meet
works for
online.
people. Yeah. And yeah, we're only talking about online meets. It's like
Yes.
whether it's on Facebook or Google
Hmm.
Meet or Zoom or whatever your platform of choice is. Because even that I recognize is difficult to do because before you had a lot of opportunity to bump into friends in common places where you hang out or like you see them in public.
Reach out and touch somebody sa Daco version, according to Dennis Ching.
And that was an easier way. So now with everything online, each online interaction is a deliberate
Hmm.
thing that you, especially if you're gonna do for a video call, you need to corral people together. You need to schedule it. You need to set it up.
You need to have the patience because people will have different connections, and
Yes,
those differences in technology or bandwidth can cause a lot of micro frustrations. Again, everyone's ready and then someone starts stuttering and you're like, okay, we'll have to wait. It's not their fault and it feels so annoying, but that's how it is in the pandemic because emotions are heightened.
but at the same time, it's still
Worth
it's
it.
still worth it. It's still
Worth the
valuable
effort.
to still keep in touch with your friends. I mean,
Hmm.
like I am guilty of times like I don't. My family does not. Uh, we probably don't call as much as we would, although we have like which is like the right now the common trend in most families, the
Hmm.
never ending family group chat that
Hmm.
that you kind of just pop into the room and pop out, and then like when there are updates that you have the mind space to reply to
Hmm.
your reply, otherwise just you just let it go on,
And in
all these
many
things.
ways, we are all super starved for social contact.
Mm.
For instance, just today at work, part of what we do at work is we have different engagement exercises. And without getting into too much detail, for this month, we decided to have something that was almost akin to a group sharing.
Mm-mm.
And I admittedly was thinking, okay, it's a group sharing. This will probably be kind of weird because we mostly don't really know each other. But the 1 hour session ended up being more than two, and
More, it's
it
about three.
was very fulfilling. We really found so many things we had in common. We empathized with each other in so many ways, and in the end, we ended feeling pretty good, despite the fact we still practically are strangers who haven't mostly met each other.
Mm.
And doing stuff like that is something you might want to consider, at least people in your circle, if not in your circle, people in an area that you're normally hanging out in. Are you someone who started a new hobby and you've now joined recently some groups? Maybe you can ask them if they're willing to hang out in a room and chat a bit, just to talk about if there's any common things or anything. Do you still have connections with old schoolmates? I don't. You do. I don't.
I do. We had one Zoom reunion throughout this
Mhm.
entire pandemic.
So maybe it's time to check with those you want to, and ask to just have a quick chat with them again. You might be surprised how the initial feeling is always, I'm not in the mood to
Hmm.
connect with people. But the moment you're talking with them, you realize how much you miss having this exchange that's not work related.
Yeah. So I mean, like as much as it is tiring and stressful, and like everything that didn't used to be a meeting is now a meeting,
Hmm.
and sometimes you can feel that video conference fatigue. But then there are good video conference calls with people important to you that may actually energize you or
Hmm.
make you feel better.
Hmm.
And then if you need a shared activity around it, that's always possible. Some people I know still have online inuman session, online drinking sessions, if that's your thing. Um, Ironically, our alcohol consumption has plummeted
Yeah,
this
we
year.
haven't. Well, we're social drinkers.
Yeah, that's the
We
thing. We don't need to drink on our
and
own.
we don't drink to get the buzz.
Yeah, we don't drink to get
That's
drunk.
what people. That's what many of our friends do. They love the buzz, and I will admit, in my younger years, I look for that. Now I don't. I'm just happy to have a drink. I prefer it's alcohol when I'm hanging out with friends.
Yeah,
And the fact that we haven't been able to hang out with friends, just drinking and just the two of us drinking didn't still feel as fun.
it just feels weird because
And
because it's not how Toby and I bond.
yeah,
Yeah, it's never been a primary bonding thing. I'd rather we watch something together and talk about it and
now
stuff.
on the other side of the spectrum, it is also absolutely fine to pull back.
Mm-mm.
If you feel that, all the social media posts of the inefficiencies of the government or the frustrations with how people are doing things are getting to you, then disconnect. I know of friends who have made sure they have at least 1 to 2 hours where they're not using their devices just
Mm-hmm.
to stay sane. Others do this as they stay in the shower extra long
Mm.
because that forces them not to have a device,
Oh, okay.
and it allows them to just
There are some people who
focus on
use a
that.
device in the shower though, testing the limits of their water resistance.
Well,
And there are some people who take full social media detoxes. I
yes.
mean, like I see friends deactivate periodically and then
Mm-hmm.
come back when they're ready, or they at
Mm-hmm.
least more often than not, I see people turn off Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes Twitter, and then they'll like hide on Instagram and
Yes.
like or Messenger only. So there are lots of avenues for you. You are not obliged to
Mm.
say hyper connected all the time, but I think the only thing to be considerate to those who love you, who care for you. Let some important people know that you're
Yes.
going on a detox.
Yes.
Let some people know that you're pulling back.
Because we'll still always, of course, worry for our friends who suddenly disappear.
Yes.
We'll
Yes.
always have that. Okay, what happened? Does anyone know how to reach them? Um, Consider also possible other escapism activities that don't necessarily have to affect your existing social connections. For some, it might be like playing a role playing game or a computer game where they be someone else for an amount of time
Mm.
and embody a different personality mindset just so they don't think about the world. For others, it might be a more participative activity that can be done alone. Writing, making your own comics,
Mm-hmm.
telling a story in a way that you're able to do without necessarily others being present. For others, it can even go as far as temporarily giving themselves an escapist account or personality. Um, Many terms on what these are called, but it basically allows them to talk about things that they find difficult or hard to deal with, but not have those associated with them. And that gives you a lot of freedom as long as you're not using it to just manipulate others.
Once upon a time, it was called an altar, but then now that has very specific
Yeah, that's
meaning.
why I was like, there are so many different terms now because there was alter, there was private accounts,
Anonymous
there
accounts,
was I forgot the other term.
burner.
Um, yeah, something like that. We're in. You,
Oh
you
my god!
basically you have a
Once upon a
second.
time, there was a slut email. How 90s is that? Okay.
Yeah.
Just your email used specifically for porn and for chat. Okay. Different things.
Yes.
Um oh, I will say that as frustrating as it is for like the way the pandemic is like going here and the quarantines and stuff, and then you can see other countries kind of living it out a bit more. This also provides some unusual online escapes that you might want to try.
Mm,
So it is only in this pandemic that we tried joining a few online concerts.
mm.
So they're live stream
Yes. Yes.
experiences, professional. Normally they're pre-recorded, but then they were like done in a way that was uniquely digital. Like
Mm,
you couldn't have executed this as a concert because it's more complicated than normal. So
mm.
there was Kylie Minogue's Infinite Disco. There was Dua Lipa's
Yeah.
forgot this Club 99 or something. So there are a few of those. That's one. And then another thing, which oh my god, I'm super excited about. I'll talk about it here because I don't see anyone from
Mm-hmm.
work, but we'll see. Is that we've discovered there's a bunch of virtual tours of famous
Mm.
locations.
Mm.
So we just like tour guides who also are, because they have less work because there's less tourists.
Mm-hmm.
So they do virtual tours for you. It'll be like an hour, and then they'll take you around Paris or
They act as
Rome.
your eyes.
Yes, and then they'll take you to a guided experience, and then you'll get to vote. So depending on the person, but sometimes you get to vote on the poll, like I want to go here, I want to go there,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll take the tour. Sometimes they're just playing videos. Sometimes, or you can pay extra for a live person on the street.
Mm-hmm.
It's very very creative, and it's a nice way to explore, to get that sense of like traveling again
Mm-hmm.
without leaving home. So I think don't knock it. So, try adding virtual plus whatever activity you used to enjoy, and you may find things of interest online.
There were also virtual productions that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. For
What
plays, yes.
some of them are pre-recorded, but the chance to see them again opens doors. So, like recently for Free Comic Book Day, there were a bunch of comic-inspired local productions that were released by CCP online
Yep, they were on
through
Vimeo.
Vimeo
Mm-hmm.
for free. So, if you never found yourself ready to shell out money to watch productions locally, that was a chance to watch for free, and it's still up if I remember correctly.
And then if you or the same thing, like if you miss watching movies, stuff has started to shift online, not just to streaming, not just to like Netflix and other streaming platforms, but there are ticketed experiences
Mm-hmm.
on places like KTX and the like. Cinema Laya this year is on KTX,
Mm-hmm.
so you can buy your tickets there, and it's in a similar range as if you were participating in person, but admittedly, you only need one ticket for your household.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still kind of saving. Plus, you're not paying for commuting, dressing up, eating out.
And it always is good to help support the people who are creating stuff because that means they're getting paid for what they're doing and they'll probably make more in the future.
Yeah, I mean, just recognize that the creative industry, the entertainment industry, super hard hit because they are quote unquote non-essential. So finding ways to support is very important.
So Jed shares he has stopped communicating with people from work during weekends. So basically, he's been setting boundaries. Mitch shares it's important. She loves scheduled messages and emails so that productivity can still be done and be mindful of the weekends. Jed mentions doesn't reply at all, doesn't even feel bad about it, and that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
I, of course, will always voice out, um, yes, it's your right not to answer work emails at all. But if the work emails are because you failed to deliver something that you committed to,
That
then
would be
you're
different.
then
Yeah.
you're being
But if
unfair.
but if you did all your stuff
Yes.
within the work week, then fine, knock off for the
Because I just
weekend.
have to always quantify it because there are some people who are like, well, it's a weekend, I don't care. But you promised to submit it and you didn't. Of course, I'll run after you.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
you have to be fair as well.
Yeah, and it's good to just like have that
Hey, Patty.
that clear delineation between work and personal, and
Mm,
especially like because you're all working from home, your people are attending classes from
yes.
home, and I know we talked about this earlier in the pandemic, and we'll stress it again that it's important to like also kind of set that
Boundaries.
the boundary between your work time and your personal
Yes.
time. So like me, it's like um I've gone as far as I have a separate browser instance
Mm-hmm.
for all my work stuff.
Same.
So that Chrome you can create profiles. So I have a work
Mm-hmm.
profile and then all my stuff there. Then my personal is all my
And
personal.
it's nice to do that because you don't have to keep logging in again.
Yes, and you don't have to keep toggling which email and
Mm.
requesting access to
It
a
just
document
gets
because you have the
weird
wrong email.
sometimes when you open a link and it tries to open in the other browser, and you're like,
Ah,
close, 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 and
or
then try to open it again.
or especially if like if you're opening a message from like I have WhatsApp for web,
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp for desktop active, and I click the link, it will now load the link into the last browser I was in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always double checking.
Even if it was closed, right? So
Yeah,
like
so
me, I have that sometimes in Discord. Like I have my work stuff, and then let's say I open Facebook to check in the family if there's any prayers or anything, and then I'll close it. Then I'll open a work link, and then it tries to load
because
it
it
in the
remembers it
personal,
as the last browser.
and I'm
Yeah,
like, oops,
yeah.
oops, oops, close, close, close.
Yeah, so having a work profile is another one of those
Mm.
things that help. And then when you're done, uh, I close that for the day, and then I'm not logged into my work tools
Yeah,
except for Facebook.
I peek when I'm in the bathroom just to make sure there's no emergencies.
Mm.
But then I don't answer unless it's urgent.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't, I and then I think the extent of me answering is probably, and this is our work culture only because like there are WhatsApp groups where we have the client, and then there are WhatsApp groups that are just internal.
Mm,
We're still more likely to like all answer the internal, like, hey, what's up with that? It's the weekend,
mm.
that's blah blah blah, and then there may be one official reply in the client chat, but that's hey, it's work.
So we just noticed some of the numbers going up. If you are new to this stream, please feel free to comment. We can't tell who you are right now, but if you comment, we can add you to the discussion and we will share your thoughts as well.
And in summary, we're just talking about what's working for everyone in terms of getting through
Hmm.
this pandemic. It's we know it's difficult, but we're trying to focus. We're trying to be focused on constructive ideas and creative solutions and just helping each other out. So that's the flow of tonight's discussion, and I'm enjoying it. I'm
Mm.
enjoying it because it's fun stuff.
So another thing that has worked for me in terms of dealing with the stress of knowing that we seem to be stuck in a Groundhog Day situation, as far as the pandemic is concerned, I've found myself finding comfort in listening to a lot of old music.
Mm.
Music which I tie to events in my childhood or tie to events back when I was younger. In terms of oh, I remembered I was listening to this song when I went to the beach with some friends in the past, or I remember this song was that song we were playing as part of this production we were part of before. And again, it's comforting because it's familiar, and it's comforting because it takes you back to something
Retreating to
you
better
remember.
times.
Yes.
I felt that way, like, and then just this week, like, there were tweets celebrating the 10th anniversary of the album "Beautiful Garbage" by
Mm.
Garbage, and like, all these memories of the different songs from it, and
Mhm.
I know I spent a bit of time that evening, like, just playing through stuff, and like, oh, I miss this, and I miss like thinking about what we were doing at the time, and so we all have, as much as they say that smell is the strongest trigger for
Mhm.
memory, don't discount the other senses. There's probably still things that you can look fondly back on, and it's a good time to uh, uh, keep have these on hand to give you strength, to
Mhm.
reinforce you, to make you feel a little better, especially when things are getting crummy.
You can also embrace this as an opportunity to pamper yourself in ways which you probably wouldn't bothered to do before. Um, for some, it's as no, no, as transformative as, oh, I'll try dyeing my hair because I
Mm.
normally don't do this. I'll try a hairstyle I don't normally wear because I'm locked at home anyway. So if it looks bad, I can grow it back.
People won't
Um,
see it as much. Yeah.
for others, it might be, okay, let's try that face mask thing and let's see if it really works, or let's experiment
We
with,
have face masks we haven't
yeah,
tried.
or let's experiment with those different devices. I know a friend who now has that face massager
Oh my
thingy.
gosh. Okay.
I have another friend who's been using that black thing and then you peel it off afterwards.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm always so worried na pag madama yung kilay.
Oh, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so stuff like that. A lot of this you probably would even laugh about at the thought of using before. But now that officially we're not allowed to have people over for massages, we're not able to visit spas, little self care that you can do to yourself is amazing. And if you're like one of our friends who went as far as buying a personal massager, just make sure you know what model you're getting.
Yeah, and I get how, like, in this, it's a similar vein to like all these people on TikTok who, I mean, apart from the dances and stuff, you
Hmm.
see a lot of people, like, because they keep scrolling on TikTok and they see all these life hacks and tips, and then they'll try it, and why not? And they're just fun little experiments if they are minimal investment in time or actual money. Then it's a great time for experimentation and like going out of your comfort zone, just to break the monotony and like not get stuck in an overly rigid routine.
Yes.
So it's a fun time for it. I mean, like, I didn't think, like, I finally set up a TikTok, and then I just make really stupid videos. Like, I just I just my TikTok approach has been, if there is a song that is trending, and then I think about, is there a transformer that I can associate with the song, and then I may film it. So I don't post a lot, but it's like okay, that's something to do. Um, and things like that. So just yeah, it's good to be a little creative in that regard. And yeah, and then I keep the one thing I'm like considering these days is like, should we get one of those massage guns? Ooh, ooh, scary.
Tempting.
That, and like and then little things to improve your work experience at home.
So Dennis suggests, or rather warns, will probably not suggest cutting your own hair. We do, and as you can see, it's not the best haircuts, but it's become something that we look forward to as something we do together.
Yeah.
We help each other make sure that the cuts aren't as horrible as they may be. We use clippers, which helps bring up the safety factor,
It's easier for guys, I know.
because you don't want to risk scissors, right? Um, but it has that nice feeling of taking care of each other. Um,
They're like grooming each other. It's like, wah, wah, wah. Okay. Uh,
yes, I'll stop at that sentence.
oh, Mitch has a suggestion. Getting that butt and back or chair support to help with long sitting. Hey, that's a
Mm.
good idea. And um, I know we have friends who have slowly evolved their homework setup. Like we had a friend who got himself an automatically adjusting standing desk.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yes.
can be at seated height, and then he can press a button. Well, it's not super automatic. You press a button and then it elevates. So standing desks are one thing. We have friends who have super upgraded their plant area. So beyond just having plants, but having a dedicated shelf for their
Mm.
plants, getting little bulbs that release the water at timed intervals. For people who are asking what a massage gun is, that's a massage gun. To be fair, they've been around for a while, even before the pandemic. My sister got one in Singapore around the time I was last there before the pandemic. Um, but yeah, it's like we haven't had massage in a very long time. That's why we're trying to be creative about it. Uh, yeah. So yeah, Mitch was trying to help. It's like a drill, but my mallet. And then Jay is here. Hello, Jay. He's in YouTube. Thanks for joining, Jay. So we're just talking about tonight. We're talking about the different ways that you're all making your pandemic life better. Oh my gosh, this looks a bit more suggestive than it should. Right? Indulgence. The indulgence that I keep arguing for or against is I want to get a fully automatic coffee maker. Like you just put the beans, you just load the water tank, and then you can get coffee by the no.
Had we had space, I would probably consider a soft ice cream machine.
Yeah.
A brand we haven't really looked at any,
Jed, you don't need a specific brand. There are so many. I guess just don't get something that's super China.
and 99 is coming.
99. Oh my god. Every month is like look forward to the monthly
Oh,
sale.
Dennis approves. It's a good item to use to remove muscle strains.
But this does not construe as medical advice because Dennis is not necessarily your doctor.
Mina already has one.
Good. Of course mine already has one.
Jed mentions, does it attach to a wall so I can do my back? You probably can rig it up somehow, because
But ultimately
better with someone else
ask
helping.
Marco to help you.
Oh,
Or in the like, oh my god, Mitch, a popcorn machine.
okay. Speaking of popcorn, and this is a totally weird tangent. So one of my comforts are those videos where it's a small, tiny, tiny thing, tiny kitchen, tiny dining hall.
Okay, Toby's always been into this.
So there was this dish, and then they had a fireplace. So he shaved off the pencils to stuff the fireplace. So it's now burning. The dish is now hot. He puts the kernels inside, and then salt, and then covers it. And you can see the whole cover for one popcorn. After three pops, You could see him holding it down. The whole thing was flapping with each pop. I loved it.
Toby has always had a thing for tiny food.
And I was already imagining that's like a popcorn this big.
So yeah, uh, indulge your little
Hmm.
hobbies and such. I mean, for a time, the first thing I explored on TikTok was this person who takes the time to make stop motion animation using a little pig eating different food. It just got a little tiring because he or she does like the same video three times with three different songs.
Yeah, I feel that's like checking which one connects to the
Yeah,
most.
yeah. Then it was just like it's like content experimentation. Then I got tired of it. Then I moved on. But it's like the world is full of very strange things. For example, there are the marble races on
Yes,
YouTube.
that
Those are
was fun.
great.
Those
Those are
are fun.
fun. I don't watch as often, but then sometimes if like I'm in the mood, I'll leave it playing, and then it's
Mm.
like it is different types of racing, but now done as marbles.
I was enjoying a lot of replays of Penn and Teller's Fooled Us.
Toby loves this.
And recently I've diverged to this channel of this guy who tries to explain the tricks behind each trick. As It always opens with a you cannot throw a DMCA notice on us because we are effectively reviewing material.
Mm, mm, mm. And then it always ends with, he puts a lot of effort into these videos. And you can appreciate if you like and share and the like. But yeah, so there is that. And then things like
Jed mentions a 4K travel walk tour.
oh yeah, they're like sort of like virtual
Ah, the one you
tour
mentioned earlier.
experiences.
Yes.
I mean, there's like just cool videos on YouTube
Mhm.
versus if you want like, but there's like interactive experiences. That's what I'm just telling
Mm.
you. We talk with this travel agent in Paris. It's awesome. Okay, and
Oh, he did Italy.
and then the internet is filled with random stuff. Like there's this guy on TikTok who randomly races different wheeled vehicles on a treadmill.
Ah, yeah, yeah, I've seen those.
It's always like, who will be faster today, this Mario Kart or this model of like the Fast and the Furious car? And it's, I don't know, find your joy, find your bliss, enjoy whatever crazy internet thing. I mean, it's a good time for it. Um, Ultimately, I think one of the things that we've really been stressing is that um, I know a lot there are people who a lot of their sort of restorative energy comes from travel and
Yes.
being in other places and being with other people
People who have the wanderlust or the desire to try new experiences.
and while depending on our quarantine state, there are limited opportunities to resume domestic travel. I
Mm.
mean, for our sanity, we don't. And then I think, especially in light of like how this current wave is really bad,
Mhm.
because we're definitely in the full throes of Delta, whether or not people in authority will acknowledge that it is a Delta surge. Um, I think it's definitely a time to like be really really prudent and minimize your interaction with other people,
Mhm.
even minimize interaction with family, um, and and
Physical interaction.
yeah, and for now, balancing that off with a lot of the online virtual things that can help
Mhm.
along. And it'll never be exactly the same, but it may be the smarter choice
Hey,
while
Nick.
we're still dealing with everything.
Likewise, if you must, because eventually there will always be responsibilities that will require us to step out. But if you must step out, then please be very mindful. Um, there's always these horror stories of people fully decked in masks and all, but then they'll lift the mask, they wipe their face, and then they'll cover their mask. So ganun then they just touch their face with their hand that's been out there opening doors, pressing elevator buttons, and all that.
Mm-mm.
So you totally just failed. Likewise, you'll have people who be so careful, all this and that. They'll buy a drink and then they'll drink it while they're out. So it's it's hard to break out of things you're used to. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, you're really thirsty. You just have to drink, but you have to be mindful. Maybe if you really have to drink, then get to the car. Once you're there, wash your hands with alcohol or something. Wipe down the covering of the drink you will drink with a handkerchief you keep in your pocket and you haven't brought out so far. Think of these little double. security things you can do to just help protect yourself more.
Yeah, I mean, as much as possible, consciously try to never have to take my mask off while
Hmm.
I'm out. My face
Same.
shield's gonna fly out all over the place, and especially because I walk.
Hmm.
But when I'm running errands, never touch the mask and
Hmm.
just leave it on. It is a part of you, no matter how uncomfortable it gets, no matter how sweaty you may be, especially if you're walking under the sun and
Mm.
whatnot, or in queue for this or that. I mean, it's we when we remind people, or when we hope that people stay safe, this is now the extent of stay safe that we're recommending, and only because I mean, fine, we're not in any authority to tell you what to do, but it just feels like it's common sense. And then at this point, the level of infections are higher than they have ever been before.
Hmm.
So I commiserate with people whose social batteries crave social attention, crave going out and all that. This is probably not the time,
Hmm.
and I hope that we can balance things out. So, uh, and in the on the flip side, we're showing you all these other things you can do that are still kind of fun, and
Hmm.
help the days go by. Um, so yeah, so I think I guess another thing is like really like if you may want to, and I know it's hard depending on but you may want to embrace a hobby, um hopefully maybe something creative, maybe just something relaxing to you
Hmm.
throughout this period. I think hence things like, I mean, there you make fun of people like uh people got into plants, but then I mean that's okay if that's their thing. Then caring for plants, researching, understanding how to take care of different plants, these are things that keep your mind working, and not focus too much on the what's happening in the world. There are people who have taken up creative pursuits, whether it is knitting, crocheting, cross stitch,
Hmm.
painting, uh, journaling. I mean, there's no shortage of things, um, and these are things you're doing for yourself, not because you're going to sell these items. Although maybe you could in the future. It is
Hmm.
not because are you need to show off everything and teach. I mean, like ultimately, just do it for yourself, and then the process. It just gives you something to focus
Hmm.
on, a way to be creative, a way to be productive. I just listened to an audiobook recently by Felicia Day of all people. This is about embracing your weird, and it was a book. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't know what I was getting. I just
Hmm.
got it because it was Felicia Day. It was a book all about creativity prompts.
Hmm.
So it was all just, it's not even editing, it's not even making something nice, it's just starting. It's a
Hmm.
book all about starting and trying, which admittedly I've been struggling with for a long time. So with random exercises like um, look, you know, as you're reading or whatever, look up from the book. The first thing you see, write a movie title for that item in different themes.
Hmm.
So what if it's a western? What if it's a science fiction movie? What if it's a romance? And then this other one, she had a prompt like, write a story where every sentence begins with a different letter of the alphabet,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
just keep going. All these whatever. So I mean, there's just, it's a great time just to start things, and I always balance it off with, I know not everybody's in the headspace for it, or you don't feel like you need to be, you don't feel you're gonna make anything amazing, but maybe that's not the point. Just to keep busy.
Yes.
My grandmother, uh, God rest her soul and all that, she used to love saying that the idle mind is the devil's playground. This is a common saying. Um, but her point was always, you must always be doing
Hmm.
something. So I feel like that may be some valuable wisdom in this time of adversity, to just like keep going, because
Hmm.
sometimes the silence can be deafening, and being left alone with your own thoughts can be troubling, unless you like the people in your head. I mean, it just these are just ways of coping. Um, yeah. Okay. And then we triggered that discussion, so we can just leave that where that is. About stuff. So, what else? What are other ways of coping? And and again, this is an interactive discussion. What are ways that you cope? What are ways that you help the days go by?
So we discussed dealing with the stress. We discussed options on how to find a a safer place to escape to,
Virtually.
how to embrace the familiar, to try to, give yourself a sense of control over things. We discussed revisiting old things, old joys. We discussed finding virtual alternatives, watching events, doing virtual tours, and so on and so forth. We discussed making sure you check in on others, that you keep virtual communications open, that you consider opening up, even talking with people who might be strangers but share something of interest so that you can still have social connections. We discussed being smart even if you do have to step out. We discussed opening your doors to new things that you haven't tried or to old things you used to do. I
We
think,
discussed helping other people.
yeah, we discussed helping other people. So I think to wrap things up, as we're just about to hit 1 hour in this episode. Um, we also have to embrace the possibilities that even if many of us are doing our best, pandemics ultimately take time. Um, I remember in my childhood years still having to take the polio vaccine. And they had those large school events where everyone was given the vaccine, and we didn't quite understand what was going on.
Mm.
But I could just now look back and imagine how how worried were my parents, and they never probably tried to make me realize it. But how worried were they of the polio? Um,
Random.
you
Was
know,
it oral or injected?
I remember oral. I remember
Yeah,
the
it
sugar
tasted
cubes.
terrible.
I liked them.
Why did you like the polio
I
vaccine?
asked if I could have a second.
What? You weirdo. Mine tasted a bit more castor oily.
Anyway,
It was sweet, but
but
it was
that's my
like,
point, right? Um,
hi Noel.
this isn't officially our first pandemic,
Yes.
but most of us never were in the mindset of recognizing it when we experienced the pandemics then. And then there are some pandemics we are aware of, but they're not anymore on such a high alert thanks to vaccinations.
Or other, health minimum health and safety
Yes.
standards. And I call to mind like technically,
Malaria and the like.
oh,
For
and
example.
technically the HIV.
Yes.
HIV is still an epidemic in
Yes.
itself that is still ongoing, that very much threatens the LGBT, well, to some degree, threatens the LGBT community a bit more, but it's become a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
And but then that's why at the beginning of the pandemic, I know I used to quip like, you know, the gays are totally prepared for COVID
Mm.
because we've been avoiding HIV as best we can. Although in hindsight, not everybody was great at that part, and so they're not as great with handling COVID. But hey,
Yeah.
hey,
So
hey,
I guess what I'm trying to say is this may be a few more years of this
to some degree,
in
yeah.
certain levels or degrees. Um, we will have to probably face the fact that certain things will definitely change. Obar, for example, the place we really love, might have to completely change its format when it returns,
Mm-hmm.
because the original thing that we loved about it being a place where we could be ourselves, celebrate with all these strangers, and watch fantastic shows. That is still a hotbed of problems for the pandemic as it is without
Mm-hmm.
changes. So there will have to be changes.
Yeah.
Restaurants are all going to have to change to some degree. We will probably see a larger number of um, weird seating approaches, weird ventilated areas. I know there are some places that are now trying to do everything to make sure that restaurants are always open air.
Mm-hmm.
um, we don't know how movies will change in the long term, and we can already expect there will be changes. Um, let's talk about being in an enclosed space for a long period of time, right?
Yes.
So,
Will we see a return of like outdoor theaters and drive-ins? You
yeah.
know,
But even drive-ins as a question, we're not even sure if that's going to be doable, only because,
not everyone has cars.
and that's completely having to build something new. So it's going to be a while before life ever, if it will ever go back to normal. And we really have to stop just waiting for the pandemic to end and hope we'll go back to normal.
Waiting for the pandemic to end is not a strategy.
Mm-mm.
Looking at you.
So so take the take the steps forward to find what changes you have to make to live with the current situation. Talk to your family about how this is not ending anytime soon, and maybe it's time even for those hard discussions of, so what if one of you has to be brought to a center for monitoring and the like?
The
What's the
quarantine. Mm-hmm.
plan? Are there things in your place that you need family members to be aware of? Do you have a dog who will suddenly be abandoned? Do you have roommates who, fine, they can still take care of the place, but are they gonna cover the fees or stuff while you're gone and stuff like that? So consider having those discussions, even if they sound morbid. It's
A
better
little
that you're at
grim.
least ready for them. As Nikki mentioned, it's hard not to be in denial, and even me, I still have that. The Obar we love will be back soon, the way we remember it. But deep down, we know, um, even something as simple as now there might be disinfection to go into a place, maybe the norm for the next few years to come, just to try to kill it completely and bring it to the level we're in. Like polio, we can come to a point where we can say we beat it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And and it's so it go includes things like, if you have friends or family who are eligible for vaccination and they still haven't done it, oh my god, please continue to encourage them to do so. And vaccination is not an end in itself, but it
Yeah.
will it will help the overall community as more and more people are vaccinated, that we have greater resistance
Mhm.
to um, most of the variants of COVID
help
19, and then we
help
go from
people
there.
understand that vaccines are not a cure. I still had office mates who mentioned, they know someone who is fully vaccinated but still got sick. And when the moment you hear statements like that, you have to help them understand the vaccine doesn't keep you from getting sick.
It doesn't give you
It
immunity.
just keeps you from getting worse. And at the same time, that keeping you from getting worse is still not universal, because that still depends on the person's comorbidities, their current state of health,
The variant.
their age, the variant. And the fact that some vaccines are less capable than the current variants out there is not a failure in the vaccine. It's how science works. It just means we have to keep fighting it even as it keeps changing. We have to keep arming ourselves against this biological enemy that has been evolved to be this capable and this destructive.
Educate them, make them play Plague Inc., and make them understand how viruses work.
Or
Man, those games, they mutate quickly.
have them watch Shells at Work.
Cells at work. Cells at work. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
seriously, this is a war. It's not the war the government wants us to think it is, but it is a war where we can do our part by sharing information, by reaching out to the people we love, by staying safe, by being smart, and by not just going out because we miss our friends.
We miss our friends too. Miss our friends so much. For people who our primary hobby is playing tabletop games, literally games that you have to play at a shared space. Um, this pandemic has been very, very frustrating.
Yeah, so Jed mentions, pwede yan, feature exclusivity and safety, fully vax people only, blah, blah, blah. But even all that doesn't
Guarantee.
guarantee, and you still want to still minimize risk. See, um, if that were something fine and it wouldn't still have risk, I'd be happy. But I sadly can't agree that that will be the solution. So
Yeah, we don't know
yeah,
yet. We don't know yet.
because that sort of implies, to make it sure that it's super safe, no one can talk aloud, so there's no spit flying. Bathrooms are monitored, because when people unmask to use the bathroom to wash their face or anything, then you have to make sure that they're still maintaining that secure thing, or else you're scanning in the entrance. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's hygiene theater.
no smoking either, because that means opening the mask. No eating. Drinking, how's drinking gonna happen? Will you have special straws with built-in masks?
I don't know. I figured like we need full Fremen gear.
And even
And
if
it's like,
we had that, do you really want to drink your vodka through a straw?
I can hack it. I do it.
So
I do it.
so I know I but yeah, see, even the moving it outdoors, fantastic. But then you already feel it's different.
And it's such a pain for the queens
Now,
to
now
perform
I'm
in
not
a
saying
non-air
I don't
conditioned
want
space.
these to happen. I'm just saying,
You have to be very careful and think about these
and
things.
and we really just have to accept the changes are coming.
Yeah, that it's never gonna be entirely the same. Ah, which on the flip side is like, oh my god, so difficult times for everyone.
I can only imagine next year when we do our next living through the pandemic episode, if there will be changes in what we're sharing.
What the thing to do, like the month of my birthday. This is gonna be our new tradition. We're going to do living through the pandemic episodes in August.
Mhm. So, for those who just arrived, I'm afraid we have reached the end of the episode because we want to support the upcoming show, Twosome.
Yeah, so Queen Anita and MC Block are performing tonight, and as one of our big advocacies throughout this pandemic is to
Mhm.
support the queens when we can.
Yes.
Um, on a tangent, a lot of people are excited about Drag Race Philippines, and me, I will take a moment in our trying to help out our friends in the entertainment industry. Please do not just pester your favorite drag queens on whether they will join or not,
Hmm.
because it is very expensive to join a reality competition show, especially of a US franchise like
Hmm.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Just to understand why it's expensive. It's not about entrance fees or travel or what. Outfits, makeup, looks, all that costs money. And beyond that, there is a certain level of commitment that has an equivalent cost that you do not see.
Hmm.
So unless you are saying I want blank to join and here's 20,000 pesos to show my support, then temper your excitement and enthusiasm with some sensitivity on whether they look like they are also as excited as you.
Yeah, because you're also putting a lot of pressure onto these queens, and that
Yes.
does not help their mental health throughout the situation.
But again, if you
Um,
want to support them in a faster, quicker way, you can buy the shirts because the proceeds do help them.
Not a sponsored post, or
Not a
you can
sponsored
watch
post.
their live streams, and if you
Yes.
don't have money to tip, then reshare their streams.
But lastly, don't wait for a show to tip your queens.
Mm.
Just tip them. There's no there's nothing to be lost by reaching out to your favorite queen and saying, "Hi, what's your Gcash? What's your whatever? I want to send you some tips."
And the same goes for just about any entertainer that you like. I
Mhm.
mean, we've reached the point that even the folks behind things like Upstart Theater,
Mhm.
the theater group, are in Kumu doing live streams and stuff. And
Mhm.
I'm frustrated. I missed the show this week because they had some cool guests. So I mean, our entertainment friends are struggling, and they all need help because think about it, they have not had any regular income for a long time.
Mhm.
So where those of us who are employed in companies that still operate in the pandemic are quite fortunate, and
Yes.
uh, we gotta pull together and help each other out when we can
Yes.
within reason. So there are many ways to support, and I think that's like our maybe our wrap up message here is that uh, the best way that we're going to survive this pandemic together is to work together. Um, and if sure the government's weird and inconsistent, so at the very least we got to pull together in our immediate circles, our family, our closer friends,
Yes.
and start there and see how well we can kind of protect ourselves. It reminds me of a sorry, random example. In The Expanse, Amos had this whole thing about tribes, right? And but the counter, his point was like people collapse into tribes and only protect their tribes,
Mhm.
and that's like your initial survival mechanism.
Mm.
But then in the long term, uh, the more sustainable goal, which takes time to get to,
It's
is
tribes working together.
making the tribe bigger, and
Mhm.
like why can't everybody be part of that tribe? So
Yes.
but gotta be realistic, start small, start in your immune circles, and then we move forward, so that we have a better chance of coming out of this okay, with very different hair, with wearing clothes you have made for yourself, carrying unusual plants from wherever. I mean, We're all going
You're
to.
describing me in all those examples.
Well, you haven't dyed your hair this year, so but it's like we're going to come out of this pandemic like completely different people, almost like people emerging from a nuclear bunker.
I'm very tempted to start, doing some Mad Max outfits and wear them during work hours. But I know you're gonna stare at me the whole time.
I already stare at you. You already do weird things at work.
Like, come to work in silver face paint and
Bahala ako.
fishnet shirts.
So that's so Mad Maxy.
Yes.
Punk outfits.
With duct tape nipples underneath.
Now you're just a drag queen.
Not the first time I have performed at OVA. Anyway, I think that's enough information for tonight. We'll all have to just work together. I almost said a high school musical reference. But yeah, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sorry for those who just arrived. But again, we want to support the Queens. Thank you, and we will catch you again soon.
If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. To be very transparent, we check this once a week. So, as long as you submit within the week, we'll be able to see it
Mm.
on Saturday or Sunday when we do our episode
And just
planning.
so you know, all suggestions are still on that list. So if yours hasn't been used, it's probably because we haven't realized how we could work on it.
We still
Or
have like 50 of them in the
or in
queue.
some cases, there are topics we really feel we're not yet sure if we're ready to tackle. Like there's one on throwing shade. We feel that's best done with the queen, with some drag queens
Maybe,
with us.
yeah.
But at the same time, we also feel like it's not a topic we are sure we want to talk about. So we're
Hmm.
we're looking into that.
And they're just things like there are games we haven't played. They're asking us to talk about certain games. So
Celestia.
we've played Celestia.
Oh, that's the airships, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Is it like Architects of West Kingdom we haven't played? Because we have
Yes.
Raiders. Okay, okay.
Yes.
All these things. Moving on with the closing. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, RG Suniko. Because if you're watching this, I guess we're already connected on Facebook and stuff. And then
You can also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. Let us know what are your best practices for getting through your pandemic. How are you coping so that working at home doesn't
Mhm.
drive you nuts? Maybe you're sharing your tips below will help someone else. So please, please, please leave a comment and be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And
And
this
this
is
is
Banoy
Baduy
Pride.
Pride.
Good night, everyone.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.